now. Okay. This is why you're all muted, to allow us to record the session without any interferences. And again, we're discussing the January release highlights with some very, very new and exciting things to start the new year off with. The first thing are researcher activities, which we've been working on for a while and have now been added to the Research Information Hub. And to talk about this great development is Daniela. So please, I'm going to stop sharing and pass the baton on to you.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So, hi everyone. Hope you're safe and well, and Happy New Year to all of you. We have developed a new and very, very exciting entity, which is called Researcher Activities or just Activities. So first of all, let's just take a minute to understand what exactly this means, Researcher Activities. So we know that researchers do research. That's kind of obvious. But we also know that researchers do lots of other things that are not necessarily research, but are a very important part of their work, such as student supervision, mentoring, teaching, peer reviewing, and a lot more. So how do we keep track of all of this information in one place? Of course, that's right. We have a new entity for this. We'll talk about researcher activities now. And I'm going to show you both researcher activities in the Researcher Information Hub, and then we'll see how you can see this also in the researcher profiles. So, okay, good. So first of all, if you want to manage and see the researcher activities, you have to make sure that you've enabled this role for your user. So in the user details, just a sec. So in the user details, you see this this line, Activities Manager. You have to enable this one, and then you'll be able to see and manage the activities in the Researcher Information Hub. So now let's go to the research management and to manage activities. And here you see that I've already created some activities. So you can see the facets here. You can filter your activities, and also you can search activities by different fields. So let's create a new activity. We have, let's, for example, create a thesis advisory activity. So here in the category, you'll have different categories for different activities. And note that some of the different categories have additional sections just for these categories. You can find more information about this in the Knowledge Center. So for example, if I choose the supervision, advising, and mentoring activity, I'll have some types for this activity. I'll choose Thesis Advisor. And here is the form that's created. Note that I have an additional section here for thesis information. I wouldn't have this if I didn't choose this particular category. So it's important to note different categories and the different options that you have for sections. So first of all, we have the general information. It's pretty straightforward. You have the title here, you have the ID, the category, the type, and the input method. We'll go back to the visibility approval in a second. Next, you have associated researchers. You add either the existing researcher or an unaffiliated researcher that you want to create. So I'll add an existing one. And of course, this will be our usual presenter. Okay, good. You can select the role of the researcher in this particular activity. So for example, I'll just go with the supervisor. And display in profile. So if you have this checked, this will display in the researcher's profile. Now we can go to pending visibility approval and choose profile visibility and portal visibility as well, although this is not available in the portal yet. It's only available in the profiles, but I'll press save. And now I know that once I'm done with this activity, it will be presented in this researcher's profile. So I'll choose an organization. A very real one, Esploro University. Okay, I'll add a description. You can add a description in multiple languages. Note that, and you can configure these languages. To do so, you have to read about this in the Knowledge Center. So I'll choose English, for example, and you can see that we have a free text and a WYSIWYG editor, so you can type in whatever you want. For example, this is this activity. Sorry, this says advisory D. Just this involved. You can add different research topics. This is a closed list. So I'll add something that has to do with physics, just for fun. This one, for example. And the keywords you can also add in different languages, same as the description. So let's write thesis and physics again. Okay, cool. Here you have the additional section for the thesis information. So you can add a thesis title here. This is free text. You have a closed list of thesis level, and you have the degree awarded. And also you have the attributes section here, which is a closed list as well. Most of our closed lists can be configured, and I'll show you how in just a minute. And also you can add some additional sections here. So for example, we have additional fields and files and links, and the section for students if you want to actually specify the students in this activity. So this is all optional for you. And now I'll go back to the list. So you'll see that this activity was actually created. Here it is. And if you want to configure some of the fields or you want to configure the types of the activities, you can do so here. The research administrator, it's all under activities, so you can configure the list of attributes that will show the file and link types, the additional fields that you have in the activity, the types of the activities, the types of the courses that you have under teaching activities, for example, the roles that you have for your researchers, and so on. So even the thesis levels that we just saw. So you can read more about this in the Knowledge Center. It's all there. And so if I go to the profile and I refresh, you'll see that we have this activity added here. It contains both the type and the title and the researcher name and the organization name, and also the short description that we added. So right now in the profiles, what we have is kind of a brief result page for the activities for each researcher. We don't have the full page yet, but we will have one in a few releases, and also researchers will be able to add activities, to create activities themselves. And also, we will soon have a subject area for activities, so you can analyze the activities that your researcher engage in and have some insights. And we will relate the activities also to other entities, such as grants, for example. And this is it for the activities. Please go to the Knowledge Center and read more. This is a great entity. You can make a great use of it. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Daniela. That was great. I'll take over the sharing now. See if that works. Okay, should be working now. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So you discussed about the activities, which is really a great enhancement to Esploro. I will go into something small that we've added to the information hub. It's small because it's written here in about 2 sentences, but we actually spent a lot of time working on it, configuring it to make it as best as we can. The ability to update a bulk of assets using a CSV import file. This is a tool that should allow everyone to make changes in more a non-manual way. So I'll show you how it looks on the screen. Just a second. Should be here. Okay, so if we have here the Research Information Hub, and I have a set of assets. I'll give just an example. I don't know. I have a set of assets that we forgot to fill in the DOIs, or when they were added to the system, they didn't have a DOI, and then they were given by their publishing agency a number, and we want to update it. Rather than going into every single asset on its own, editing, saving, and then going into the next one, what we can do is here, I'll show you on the side. We're not in the configuration menu, we're in the regular menu. If we go to admin, not admin, yes, admin, run a job, there we are. We've added a new job called Research Assets CSV Export. And this is a little bit different than the job we had before. So if anyone's used the job before, please note that you have to set it up again. Both the export and the import are a bit different and need to be looked at again and updated accordingly. So I will choose the Research Assets CSV Export job to run now. It's run on a set of assets. So I'll just choose a set that I have ready here and go next. And here is what's new. In the past, we had a full export. Everything, all the available fields were exported, which meant that the CSV file was very big, long, cumbersome, hard to handle, hard to deal with, because it included many, many, many fields. Now you can just export a small number of fields that will give you enough information to make the changes. And you don't have to worry about other fields getting wiped out or changed when you don't want them to. So If you're still interested in the full export, then you can choose that and you'll get the whole long Excel. But we give you the option, this is new for selective export. And on this export, you can choose specific things that you might want. Let's say you want the asset title, that'll help you know what it is. You want the DOI column so that you can update the DOI column. Let's say you also want to make sure that the um, date published was the correct date published, which is actually publication date, which is why I need to look at it here and the P. And then when you run this, the you'll get the CSV that includes only the columns that you chose, in addition to the columns that always appear for the asset number, which is very important because that's how we make the match back. Now, I just want to tell you here is that to make it easier for you, we have the name of the column in the CSV. Okay, so you can see the name of the field in the form and the name of the column that matches that field in the CSV. Now, those of you who've used the CSV before, we did make some updates to some of the column names, more to prevent mix-up or confusion, and also we added quite a number of fields that were not there before. So that's one thing that's important to know. You can see here a lot of the fields and their names. And of course, in the documentation, we have a list of all the fields available and their labels. Now, in addition to the ones here on top, asset dates or titles or identifiers, which will give you a long list of things that you can choose, some options allow you to choose all the publication details or all conference detail fields because these come as a sort of chunk together, let's say. So conference details field, there are 4 of those for name, place, date, ETD details, so you would get them all. And this will just make it easier than having to choose everyone together. Asset links information, it's very important to get all the information together because the links themselves have all the information together. Now, one thing you don't see here is the files. We don't allow updates to files through the CSV import because it doesn't work. There's a different way that files need to be handled, and it can't be done this way. And the second thing that we don't have here is the creators and contributors because there's no author matching in this way of updating the assets. So if you need to update researchers, that would be done differently. We have jobs for updating researchers. This is for updating fields on the asset. I'm not going to run the whole thing through. I'll just say you go next. You get the file. Now, if anyone, again, I'm not doing the whole thing. I just wanted you to understand what's going on and to know that this is available. But the documentation was done very carefully so that you'll be able to follow it step by step. We will also soon be putting out a how-to video, how to update assets with CSV export. So if you need a little bit more information and help on how to do this, you'll be able to see it there. I'm not going to be making changes right now. But this is our great new development. Of course, after we get the export a file and make the changes, then you'll have to import it in the repository import profiles. Okay, one of the import profiles that I have is CSV import, but that's because I set it up. So you may have set it up in the past, but then it won't work. So please add a new profile for research assets. And here, once you choose the originating system Esploro, the physical source format turns automatically to CSV. And then you have the option to import either new, which is something that we allowed in the past, but now you have to choose this button, or to update, and then you add the file. So with create new, you wouldn't have any asset IDs, and with update, it would need the asset IDs to match. And any more information, again, as I said, in documentation or in the how-to video coming up next. Moving straight ahead into our researcher profiles. This is the activities that Daniela talked about, but we're now added also Expert Finder, which is something that we've been hearing, very important to all of you. And I'll show you how it'll work now. I'll start here at the portal, and I could do search here in the menu for researcher profiles, or I could search here, not in the outputs, but in researchers. So let's say, now we have two changes that we made here, because we could search for researchers, but we also added the ability to choose name or affiliation, and I'll show you how important that is soon. Let's say I want to search for Art, short for Arthur. I want a researcher with the name Art, and I'll do search. I could also press enter to get there. But once I searched all, not only will it give me someone maybe whose name was Art, Matthew Hart, it will also give me someone who deals with contemporary or art. It'll also give me everyone that has department in their affiliations. So if someone is in the Department of Biological Sciences or someone is Department of Chemistry, I will get all these. And this, of course, is not what I want. This doesn't help me at all. I want art, let's say, in affiliation. Well, actually, that gives me the that gives me the department again. I wanted it in the name actually, and there's no matching profile, which is fine. You can see that there's name and affiliation here. That is because it was configured. I'll go into the configuration now. And if you go into the portal and profiles configuration, you can see researcher profile search results configuration. This is new. This way you can decide what you have to display. So we had all name and affiliation, topic wasn't on. So that's why you couldn't see it, but you could have a topic search. And we also added facets. So you can decide which facets to show and whether they're expanded or collapsed. This you can decide in the configuration, and then you can see it here. I'll now search for something else. I actually am looking for an expert in climate change and want to know who can help me with that, who in the university I can collaborate with, or in a different institution that I'm looking at their expert finder. And here I found 5 people who have climate change as one of their topics. And you'll see here the facets, which include the current affiliation, researcher topic. You can see what else besides climate change. is being researched by these people. So this is really could be very helpful and is really a step forward in our expert finder, and something that I hope you'll all be able to showcase in your institutions. The next thing I wanted to show you, which is lost for me now. There we go. Okay, so that's Expert Finder, as I said. And another thing that we can do is browse browse the researcher by the research unit. I'll show you what I mean. In the past, we had the research unit tree, which you can get to from the top menu. This is a research menu tree with the different departments or faculties. And we only had the option for research output. So if we chose a certain department, we would get the list of outputs for that department. I'm not going to show that because that we had already. We've now added researcher profiles per research unit. I'll choose an interesting one that has a bit more information. I will go into the Faculty of Engineering here. Of course, all of these this is not a real institution. Different people, different research units, but it's not really nothing real here. And as you can see in the Faculty of Engineering, I have 16 results, and everything that's under Faculty of Engineering is found on this page. It's not 16 results, it's 16 result pages, okay? It's quite a number of results, but I can filter it. First of all, I can filter here by research topic or start date or current affiliation, but also the affiliation filtering can be done here. Okay, I don't know if you missed that. I'll show it again. There's this little arrow here. And once I open it, it'll give me the options of the departments which are under the Faculty of Engineering. And then once I choose one, I will get the researchers that are part of this faculty, a Department of Mechanical Engineering under the Faculty of Engineering. Um, so this is also a way to get to different researchers in different research units, and a way to showcase. You can have a link from your department page directly to the researchers in the department, or any other way of showcasing it. Would be great, showcasing the researchers within a research unit. A few more things that we've done this time in the research portal is Google Analytics. You can use Google site tracking if you configure your information hub accordingly. So this time you go into Configuration, General, Institution Settings, and you'll see that there are two additional parameters that we've added here. One is the Google Analytics Tracking ID, and one is the Google Verification ID, both of which need to be added in order for the Google Analytics to work. And if you have any questions, again, documentation should be updated. In addition, we're always working on improving accessibility, and we're just about to get the VPAT accreditation, but this is also ongoing as we develop more within the research portal and profiles. We keep on making sure that it's accessible. Okay, I've talked a lot, so I'm going to pass over the mic to Tammy. I'll just stop sharing so that I can
Hi
let
everyone.
Tammy share. Yeah,
Yeah,
in
I'm
just a
gonna share.
second.
seeing now.
Okay, it should work for you. Now we're going slowly. Okay, try now. And I'll just say that Tammy will talk about the smart harvesting AI and smart expansion this time.
Are you seeing my screen? Oh, wait. Okay, I'm pressing it wrong. Are you seeing now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, hi everybody. I want to give you an update on what's new in the smart harvesting framework. And I want to focus really on one large development. We've added a new type of smart um, expansion. I'm sorry, I got this wrong. This type of smart expansion called smart expansion via CSV or Excel. I just want to, take this opportunity to take a step back and again remind you what we mean by smart expansion as opposed to smart harvesting, both of which we consider to be within what we call the smart harvesting framework. The idea behind smart expansion is that we're trying to find ways to enable you to bring in assets that you know belong to the researchers, and to do this before you start smart harvesting, which is exploratory, where we go out to CDI and we ask, okay, what might belong to your researchers? So to date, we had two main methods. We had the smart expansion via the central discovery index, and we had a smart expansion via citation lists, which could accept files in BibTeX or RAS. And now we've added a third type, smart expansion via CSV Excel. And I have down here ORCID profiles, which is also going to be coming. And of course, there may be other types that we'll be adding in the future. Now, the new type, the smart expansion via CSV Excel, is actually an improvement over the central discovery index. And it basically does something very similar. What does it do? It accepts a file or a list of publications that are represented by certain metadata elements that are known to belong to your researcher with the researcher ID. The system then goes to look for these assets in CDI, brings them in, normalizes them, does author matching, and brings them into the system. So again, as I said, this is very similar flow to the smart expansion via CDI, and our plan is to deprecate smart expansion via CDI. We're hoping to do this in March because basically it does the same functionality, but in a better way. So I want to first, before showing this to you, I want to briefly give you an overview in what ways it's different. So first of all, in terms of the framework, the smart expansion via CDI, in other words, what we have today, works through the import profiles, while the new one is already within the smart harvesting framework, which also means that the whole flow of author matching, the approval flow, is not done via the report, but same way that the migration was done, it's done via the author matching task list. There's also a difference in terms of the author matching approval or the author matching ranks. In the import profile framework, basically we had two levels. We had strong and uncertain. And also strong was de facto considered to be approved. While in the new program, we have the same three that we have for smart harvesting, very strong, strong, and uncertain. Also here, our focus is on the researcher and the active researcher. In other words, the researcher to whom the asset belongs to, based on what you've given us in the file, we automatically approve. And if for some reason we can't find the author, the researcher, in the record, we'll add the researcher automatically, and you'll see that it can happen. It should be rare, but it can happen that there's a status called added by system. The co-authors, not the researcher who was actually in the file, the approval is based on the configuration in the profile, same as for smart harvesting. Another aspect where it differs relates to asset approval. In the smart expansion via CDI, the current version, basically you had two options. You could load it as an asset that's already approved, and now as the minute it goes in, it also shows up in profiles in the portal, or excuse me, in the portal. Or you could have loaded it as a deposit, which would require asset approval. So in the new, there are more options, and I'll show this to you. Another important difference is that in the older version, you had to have a DOI or a PMID. In other words, the only way to represent an asset was to have a DOI or a PMID. And we understood that very often it's sometimes, or it's not possible. You may have, you know, one good source for smart expansion are FAR systems, faculty activity reporting systems. Very often the DOI isn't there. So in the new, a DOI or PMID is no longer mandatory. If you can supply a title, we'll also try to fetch the record from CDI using the title and the researcher name. Finally, one additional change is relates to the last smart harvesting date. And I'll remind you that the last smart harvesting date is the way that we activate the ongoing smart harvesting, which means running smart harvesting on a weekly basis for researchers and bringing in new things. That, which could be a scheduled job, this job works on what we call the last smart harvesting date, because every time smart harvesting runs, it updates the date, and then we request from CDI only new assets that came in since the last harvesting. So in the older program, there was no relationship to this date. In the new, you can optionally update the last smart harvest date. In other words, if the files that you can supply, the source that you have are good enough for the researchers, and it's a comprehensive list, then the date can be updated, and basically smart harvesting, the ongoing smart harvesting, will start from the date of the most recent publication that was loaded via smart expansion. Okay, so these are the differences, and now here I have some screen captures just in case I have issues with the environment. But let me go to the environment and show you this. I'm working in a test environment with seeded. We're very grateful, seeded with data from Iowa. This is not Iowa production. Iowa gave me, they said it was okay, just for brief demos like this to show it. I have to say, it's very, very difficult to run smart harvesting or smart expansion in a totally made up environment, because you need real researchers. In any case, let me start by showing you here under repository the profile. So we've added, from January, you'll see a new profile, the smart expansion by a CSV or Excel, which of course, if you want to use, you will need to activate. Let's take a look at some of the options here. So this is basically name, description, whether it's active. This is what I mentioned before, the option to update the last smart harvest date. So it's set as by default to yes, but you can uncheck it. Then we have the asset approval. So the asset approval, the options are to never automatically approve. This is basically the same as saying I want it to be loaded as a deposit, and I want to approve the assets separate from the author matching approvals. There's the option to always automatically approve the asset, which means the assets will just go in, okay? Same as they did for migration. They'll go in, and you'll still need to do as needed author matching approvals. Or you can, this is basically the new option of conditionally approving the asset based on metadata, based on the metadata. So at the moment we have two conditions. Potentially this can grow. You can conditionally approve the asset based on the asset type, and or if the asset has a DOI or a PMID. And this came from some customers who, and also my personal experience, that the data from CDI for journal articles, certainly if they have a DOI or a PMID, is really relatively good and consistent. And it's probably safe to say, I'm going to approve the asset, and you don't need to do a lot of checking or check them all beforehand. Okay, so these are the options. I could also add here additional, of course, I can select the ones that I want to, so maybe also conference proceedings I would select here. Then we have the author matching approval, which is the same as for smart harvesting, and it's per rank, whether I want it to be done automatically or I want to approve the match. And again, I just want to remind you that this is a match for the co-authors, not for the actual active researcher. In other words, the researcher, the file itself, and I realize now I didn't create an example of the file, but again, the file, in the documentation, you can find details about the structure of the file. But essentially, again, it's very similar to you can actually use the same file that you used for the older type of, or the existing expansion. But what's mandatory is to have a researcher ID and then some metadata. So DOI, PMID, title. Okay, so that's the structure of the file. Once you have a file ready, and this can derive from multiple sources, right? It could be from a FAR system. I know some customers were downloading data from Scopus or Web of Science. There could be multiple ways of doing this. And maybe this is also a chance for me to say that if you, if you could share with us and share with the community how you're creating the files for Smart Expansion, that would be very useful. We're thinking of creating a type of cookbook because there can be multiple methods for creating the input file to Smart Harvesting. So if you're doing anything other than what I mentioned, I'm very keen to hear and to learn about it. And then to actually run the Smart Expansion, you search for the file and you click on Run Now. Now, I'm not going to actually run it now. It does take a little bit of time, depending, of course, also on the size of the file. But I do want to just show you briefly the report. So you can monitor. The monitoring of this new type is the same as the others. You can see them, of course, in the admin, but you can also see it here. Let's take a look at one of them. So I'm going to. So this just tells me that the Smart Expansion ran. This is again a test environment, so we didn't run it with very big files. That it ran for one researcher. Then it's telling me how many records passed or were deduped, and we have to here there are two stages of deduplication or matching, because first of all, in the Excel file itself, because you can have researchers, very often co-authors come from the same institution, it's possible that the same asset, the same article, appears more than once in your file, in the CSV or Excel file. So we first try to dedupe those, again, based on the metadata. Then there's a second stage where we do the dedupe again after we bring the records from CBI. So in this particular case, there was one deduplication from stage 1, and there's information about it with the title. I won't access all of these options because that takes time, and we don't actually have a huge amount of time. Then the report also lets me know if any records weren't found in CDI. If I open this, I'll see that I'll see a list. I'll see the titles. So these are records that we couldn't find. Initially we thought we would have a stage of validating the metadata. In other words, validating the records that we found from CDI with the metadata in the file. This came up as a need because in some cases DOIs were incorrect. At the moment we deactivated this option because it created in our tests some issues. But it's probably something that we're going to get back to, so the option is still here. At the moment, you'll always see 0 because we aren't doing any validation on the records we're bringing back from CDI. This is telling me if there are any records that weren't imported. I already looked at this, and the reason why these weren't imported are because they were already duplicates. They were already in the matching process, already found them in the repository. And then there's some standard here that we skipped records. There were too many authors. Remember, if there are more than 800, we won't bring the record in. If there were any invalid rows in the file itself that we couldn't read for some reason, or maybe an ID was missing. And then the total number of assets that were imported. So we brought in 65 assets. These are the number of automatically approved, number of non-affiliated, new non-affiliated that were created, and general error, which are more technical types of errors that can happen where I don't have an example that comes to mind at the moment. So this is the job report. And I want to go back and look at, let me copy this one. Let me copy. We can look at some of the tasks that were created. So again, unlike the CDI, the smart expansion by a CDI, where the author approval, the author match approval was done through the report, this is already fully integrated within the smart harvesting framework. And the system creates author matching tasks for them. So if I go to the list, the author matching approval task list, we can see here, first of all, you can see here that one of the facets is the profile. So we can see here, and I can filter to the specific type of smart harvesting or smart expansion. So the one you can see that we've added, now you can see that we also have the comma separated type. I'm going to do a search using the job ID. Let's just take a closer look at the tasks that were created. Search. Oh. And really, they look just like the tasks that created from smart harvesting. And I mean, all the options that I'm not going to go and explain, how to work with the author matching task list. There's a training session and there's documentation if you haven't already had experience with it. Maybe just a couple of things to highlight is that you can see that in terms of the author matching status, most of them have been approved automatically. And again, the minute we ran, I actually happen to know we ran this job for this researcher, Bamba. And so all of his are going to be automatically approved. There are some that are pending approval because of co-authors. And I see here also two examples of added by system. And I just want to show you why this happened. So here we had two examples, and if I look at first one, what I can see is that you see here at the bottom, we added the research. Again, it ran for Baumbach Gary, but when the system looked at the list of authors, we couldn't find Baumbach Gary, and really it looks like he or she is missing. It's probably a he, is missing from the list. I don't know if this was a mistake. I don't know where the mistake came from. I don't know if this is a mistake in the source record. I don't know if the whole record was a mistake and shouldn't have been in the file. But in any case, because the author was missing, we couldn't find a matching author to the researcher, we added the researcher added by system. So just note, and that's the explanation behind, if you see it, added by system. Another thing, maybe just to note about this, and this is different than smart harvesting, is that if the asset was not approved automatically, then you'll also see this indication, pending asset approval, which means that the asset itself hasn't been approved. So of course you can approve the asset when you can go into the edit and approve the asset as part of this flow. We've also added, so that you can keep track of assets that are pending approval, there's a new option here, asset approval. And this is, it's basically a query that leads you into a results page with a list of all the assets that are pending pending approval. Okay, this means that these assets have not been approved. They won't show up in the portal, and they also won't show up yet in the profiles. They're pending approval. So that's one way of accessing them. Another way is that we've also added a task. So you can also see it now in the task list. You see here Smart Expansion via CSV Excel, asset approval, and through this I can access the same list. Okay, so there's both from the menu and as a task the ability to locate assets that are pending approval. Let's see. I think more or less, I covered the important points about this new type of smart expansion. I would also mention that it's also been added to the analytics. So, we've added measures related to the new type of smart expansion. And I think with that, I don't know, Shoshana, I finished for smart harvesting. I don't know,
Okay.
Shoshana, do you see any questions? If not, I'll just.
Well, I'll move the sharing to Daniela, who is about to tell
Okay, we
us
still have one
about
topic.
changes
Okay,
in
I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm
analytics.
going to stop sharing, and I hope I didn't take too much time.
And I will look to see. Right now, I don't see any questions. Daniela, do you want to present?
Yes, hi. Hi again. So please tell me when you see my screen. See my screen?
Yeah, see your screen. I don't see any questions. If anyone has any questions, please write them in the Q&A box, and we'll try to finish soon.
So last but not least, this is a small enhancement in analytics, very short. We've added the user status field. This was an idea from the Ideas Exchange, so thank you very much for this. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, in the researchers here, you can see the status field for each user. We have a status, and now you also have this in the researcher's subject area. It's under user details. It's here, user status, and you have these options: active, deleted, inactive, and blank for those who don't have this. So this should make your reports about your researchers easier. Again, this is an idea that we got from you, so thank you very much, and keep pushing your ideas in the ideas exchange. We actually read this and we develop some of them. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your time, and stay safe.
That's great. Thanks, Daniela. We're actually finishing right on time. Thank you very much to everyone here, and we'll see you again next month in February release. So stay safe. Bye.